Okay, so let's come back to our conceptual map here and try and see if we can figure out where the supplemental poverty measure falls on this map. Let's start with the number of indicators that the supplemental poverty measure takes into account. It appears to be, on the face of it, a multiple indicator approach to measuring poverty. Like the official poverty measure, income is definitely in the mix. Income matters to the supplemental poverty measure because a household's money income is included in its resource bundle. But there are more indicators involved. You can say that these non-income public assistance benefits that can be used to meet a household's FCSU needs, you can say that they're a type of asset, and they too are included in a household's resource bundle. And it appears that consumption or expenses is also in the mix because, remember, these non-discretionary expenses like MOOP and taxes, work expense, are subtracted from a household's resource bundle. So we have at least 3 indicators in the mix so far. Now, these are the things that are being compared to the threshold, the household's resource bundle, things that are added and subtracted. What about the thresholds themselves, that center column? Well, let's take a look. It is clear that the thresholds themselves are based on consumption. They are set at the 30th to the 36th percentile of the FCSU consumption distribution. And in this sense, it appears that the thresholds themselves have mostly characteristics of relativity. Why is this? Imagine that the entire consumption distribution goes way, way up. Things are good in society, people have jobs, good jobs, things are modernizing, things become more affordable. The entire consumption distribution moves upward. People are spending more on FCSU across the distribution. There are still going to be people in the bottom third of the consumption distribution. So in many ways, this threshold is dependent, not independent of, the standard of living in the society. Think about your grandparents. My grandmother grew up in a house that didn't have indoor plumbing. My grandfather grew up in a one-room home. And now, even the people in the bottom third of the distribution, many people in the bottom third of the income distribution, have fully modernized homes. They've got, central air. They've got all kinds of things. So, in fact, this has happened. The bottom third doesn't look like it did when my grandparents were my age. But in a sense, for the supplemental poverty measure, this doesn't matter because they're going to set that threshold at that bottom third line, regardless of whether it's my grandparents' time period, our current time period, or many, many years into the future when new consumption items may become normalized. So this threshold has mostly the characteristic of relativity. So just summing up here, the supplemental poverty measure is a multi-indicator approach to measuring poverty in which a household's resource bundle is compared to a relative threshold, and that threshold is based on 4 categories of consumption, FCSU, at the low end of the distribution, sort of the bottom third. And this is in contrast to the official poverty measure, which is a single indicator approach to measuring poverty in which an amount of income, an amount of money, is compared to an absolute threshold, and that threshold is based on 1 category of consumption, F, not just at the low end of the distribution, but at the extreme lowest possible level. Remember that thrifty food plan was for emergency or temporary circumstances accounting for very extreme possibilities. So that is, in sum, the differences between where the OPM and the SPM come out on this map. Like with the official poverty measure, the supplemental poverty has a definition of poverty that is inherent in it, and that definition is slightly different. This is a nuance here. Basically, the definition of poverty that the supplemental poverty measure gives us is not having enough resources to sustain FCSU consumption in the bottom third of the distribution. Or you could say, because FCSU are subsistence needs, you could say not having what you need to subsist in the bottom third of society. So we'll talk about the differences between the OPM and the SPM more in class.